involved, even as I'm saying it.
So there could be some raw meat there.
There could be some raw meat in there.
Just take a hack out of a rabbit.
But supposedly our teeth were naturally straighter because of all of the tension that we're constantly putting on them.
Oh yeah, that's a big deal. And people, like, when they're sleeping, they're grinding their teeth because of the stress of the job and all that kind of stuff. And
I wonder, as we said, I wonder what the stress of wondering if you're going to get eaten in your sleep hundreds of years ago, or in our country, what it was like 200 years ago, and you're expanding into new territories.
A bear will get you or something. I mean,
Native American Indians. The war between those two factions. What I'm wondering is, what was I sincerely wonder, what was the stress like for a person then compared to our stress today? It's totally different.
Oh yeah. You know what? Speaking of that, just the other day, and this is nothing, but I watched Forensic Files right before I went to bed. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's really cool. They solve these murder mysteries. They find like a speck of dust somewhere in the corner, and they're like, "Oh, that's some DNA on there. Oh, we figured it out." Bernie Smith. Very interesting. But I mean, the way that they do these shows, they're like a half-hour show, and they string them all up together, and they're so interesting at the beginning. So just as you're finishing one and your jaw's on the ground, like, how did they do that? Then they bring up another one, and you're like, how did that? Before you know it, you've watched like 6 episodes of this. And then I went to bed. I woke up several times in the night thinking someone was in my room. And I'm just saying, 200 years ago, I mean, you're thinking there's a bear in your room, or there's something's going to eat you or cut your head off or something. I mean, it had to be a lot worse. So we got nothing compared to what those guys went through.
Oh, it's just so different, though. I mean, the anxiety that we grow up with now, don't underestimate what kids are going through with just social media growing up.
Yeah.
And feeling
I can't even relate to that.
I think a lot about it. So I feel like I have empathy for it because of the bullying that goes on there, and they're so impressionable. I know how messed up, insecure, and impressionable I was when I was young. And if I was on social media looking at everybody putting their fake faces on there and their fake lives on there, holding that up as a mirror of perfection, I am feeling so more inadequate than I could possibly be without social media. I want to look.
That's a good point.
I had forgotten to do that. I wanted to look up what the suicide rates are in younger people these days. I'll bet you they are high.
I think they are. I think that's something that's kind of out of control now.
And, and you couple that with, and we've talked a lot about this, and I don't think it could be talked about enough, is the coddling that we have done with the generation that is now protesting about everything under the sun and removing names like, the Washington Redskins just eliminated Redskins. They're just Washington.
They're the
now.
Washington football team.
I know. Oh, God. So so everybody's so sensitive, and we pander to that, and this is so unnatural, and it gets right back to all this anxiety that I'm talking about, that gets right to suicide rates.
You're right.
We have to teach people how to deal. Everything in life is nothing but a struggle, and if you try to take those struggles away, it's unending. People will create chaos because we like chaos. As men, we need chaos. We thrive for it. Look at video games. I mean, young people lose half of their lives in video games to what? Trying to get to the next level of chaos because they already mastered this chaos. So it's continuously looking for a higher level of it to master it. So if you go out in life and you don't teach them to look for challenges to conquer and feel proud of, they are going to create chaos and try to bring this world down as they are now so that they can master it in whatever way they want. And we talk a lot about socialism, communism, Marxism eking its way in. There is definitely a movement for that, but I think most younger people just want the chaos. I really do.
Interesting theory you have there. I can relate to that in a bit. And, and you go back to the social media aspect of things and kids having to deal with that.
It's horrible.
You know, and in light of bullying as well, and you know, let's face it, it's sort of a rite of passage, the whole bullying thing. I mean, I remember when we were kids, it wasn't like we were immune to it. I had to deal with bullies in my life, and you know, and you learn how to deal with that. You learn how to that being passive in those situations is usually encouraging to the bully.
Yeah.
That's you kind of have to. There's some scary stuff you have to deal with, but we only had to do that, you know, face to face, which that wasn't easy.
Right.
These guys, I mean, these are like people that are almost like phantoms they have to deal with because they're online. And speaking of that, Nextdoor, that app, that's how, or
we
that
talk about that a lot.
I unsubscribed this week.
Wow, I'm not surprised, but tell me about it.
It was toxic. It was just toxic. Anybody that comes out with anything that disagrees with the media line these days are targeted, and the meanest comments from your neighbors fly at you. And I just think that that's terrible. I don't want to be walking around my neighborhood thinking this is what all my neighbors think about my opinions and my beliefs.
Yeah.